nothing. He even did that bit too. Yeah, she asked him what's corporate number.
Because the only thing I asked him was for corporate number.
That's the only thing she asked him.
I was going to go over there and get the card from them.
I heard the F-bomb and everything.
No, because Goldie was sitting here talking crazy to me. No, but that's not what you're going to do to me. You're not going to grab on me like that, no.
Come on, Kiki, let's just go outside.
Please talk to you separately. Because he just come here and just grabbed on me like for no reason. I was saying I was doing.
Yes, he would have. All she did was ask him what they knew. Why you not pushing her? She not doing nothing. Like, what are y'all doing? No, y'all doing nothing.
Y'all ain't really doing stuff to me. What are you doing?
Man, I'm about to break your arm. That's what I'm about to do.
You about to break her arm?
Go ahead and quit resisting.
Like, what are y'all doing?
No,
y'all got her kids out and everything.
What's going on?
Right now, you can put
no, I'm trying to understand what's going on.
She not, y'all ain't even talking about why she being on her leg.
Y'all not even telling me what I'm doing.
Like, why you talking? Kiki, just turn over. Kiki, turn over.
Pull your head around.
What am I doing wrong? What did I do wrong? Y'all haven't told me anything that I did wrong.
Roll over on your stomach.
Y'all haven't told me anything that I did wrong.
Y'all got her head behind her back.
Why? I don't have anything.
You want to come fix her clothes?
No, y'all fix it. Y'all got.
Tonight, the California Highway Patrol is investigating whether an officer crossed the line when he repeatedly punched a woman during an arrest in Los Angeles. The altercation was captured on tape, and Terry Okita has the story.
It happened during Tuesday evening's rush hour. Drivers traveling along one of LA's busiest freeways could see the highway patrol officer follow an unidentified woman across the on-ramp. He then threw her to the ground and repeatedly punched her as she tried to block his blows. David Diaz recorded the incident on his cell phone camera.
So take me back to that moment when you saw them on the ground.
Got you. So when they're on the ground, he was basically on top of her in full control. And he basically really did some power punches to her head.
The CHP officer's incident report says the barefoot woman ignored commands to stop wandering near the freeway. So, for her safety, he tried to arrest her. The pedestrian then becomes physically combative, the report says. A physical altercation ensued as the pedestrian continued to resist arrest, at which point a plainclothes off-duty officer assisted in applying the handcuffs. Diaz says he heard the officer yell freeze, but didn't see her resisting arrest or holding a weapon. He believes she may have been intoxicated or unstable.
This was one, two. If you're trying to protect her, then what's this beating in the head for?
Chris O'Quinn, chief of the CHP Southern Division, discussed the incident this afternoon.
We're looking at every possibility, every fact, every circumstance that have contributed to this situation, and we're going to try to come to a just conclusion to why it occurred.
Highway Patrol officials say they became aware of the video yesterday and immediately opened an investigation. They also say the woman was taken to the hospital for further evaluation, but have no status report on her condition.
Terry, thank you.
This morning, a former Aurora police officer fired for an incident last year will continue pleading his case in his appeal. APD fired Officer Levi Huffin after a woman he arrested fell into a precarious position in his patrol car. Our Noel Brennan is outside Aurora Police headquarters this morning. Noel, the police chief had some strong words describing what this officer did.
Yeah, she testified in the hearing, Liz, and we know this morning that this officer, Levi Huffin, he's going to continue his testimony. He'll have to take some questions about the 21 minutes that cost him his job. 21 minutes in which the woman he arrested was in the back seat of his patrol car, restrained, essentially hogtied. She slipped off the back seat and had her head pinned against the floorboard. She screamed, asked for help, saying that she couldn't breathe. The video shows the officer did not help her, and we have to warn you, it's a bit disturbing to watch.
Hey, my neck is about to break, bro. Can you lift me up? Hey, officer, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Please help me, please. Please help me, please. Officer.
Well, this video is from August 27th of 2019. Aurora police officer Levi Huffine arrested the woman for her role in a fight. All charges against her, though, have been cleared. In the video, she cries, she screams and begs repeatedly for several minutes, and at one point, she calls Officer Huffine master. This is what was most disturbing to Aurora Police Chief Vanessa Wilson. She actually fired the officer, who is now appealing that decision. Huffine's counsel says he could not immediately see the position of the woman while she was in the back seat of his patrol car.
But there are numerous other occasions where he admits that it was a mistake not to look back, and he even admits that he should have stopped, doesn't he?
You're absolutely right.
So Officer Huffine, again, expected to continue his testimony in that hearing later this morning, Liz. For folks who are interested, the whole video of the incident has been posted on our website, 9news.com, and of course we'll be following the developments that come out of today's hearing.
Okay, Noel.
That was some disturbing video of a violent clash between a police officer and a 14-year-old girl at a Florida mall. ABC's Janae Norman with the latest.
Tonight, this cell phone video showing a Florida police officer repeatedly punching a 14-year-old girl on her side is going viral. The teenage girl's mom is furious, saying her daughter was pinned on the ground with her arms underneath her while the officer struck her. The girl was then taken away in a police vehicle.
Back up. Oh my God, I was furious. What he did was not justified at all. He totally was wrong.
According to authorities, officers were called to the Coral Square Mall Thursday about a group of unruly teens, issued a trespass warning barring the teens from the mall, but they returned. Then officers say the 14-year-old girl began acting aggressively and resisting arrest and wouldn't release her clenched fists. They say the officers' actions were within policy, legal, and not excessive.
What you see on video is the officer delivering some strikes, distraction strikes, to an area where she has her hands concealed underneath her. The officers don't know what she may have in her possession. That's a concern.
But the girl's mom says the officer involved should be fired.
He went totally overboard because she wasn't resisting. They want to make us accountable for our actions. They need to be accountable for their actions.
And Tom, that girl's mom isn't alone in wanting accountability. Now a Florida state representative is calling for police to release the body cam footage of the incident, but so far, no word on whether they will. Tom?
Janae, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.
Seattle police officers fatally shot a 30-year-old pregnant woman Sunday in her home while 3 of her children were in the house.
We need help. We got this woman hurt. Hey, get back! Get back!
The Seattle Police Department released an audio clip of the shooting, and you can hear the 2 officers yell, "Get back," before the gunshots. Charlena Lyles called the police about a burglary in her home, and while the 2 officers were in her home investigating, they say Lyles confronted them with a knife before she was shot and killed. Lyles' family says the shooting was unnecessary and that Lyles suffered from mental health issues. The Seattle Police Department has a history of excessive use of force, according to a Justice Department assessment. But, according to a federal monitor, it had become a, quote, model of policing for the 21st century in recent years. In 2011, the Justice Department found Seattle PD had, quote, routine and widespread use of excessive force, and the police department entered a consent decree with the federal government for reform. Since then, the police department's use of force incidents dropped 60%, and a recent federal report says the officers have used de-escalation techniques more often. Despite this glowing report, the Lyles family wants more answers from the department. The 2 officers involved have been placed on paid administrative leave while the incident is investigated.
American Civil Liberties Union just released the officer's body cam video so you can see the whole thing play out. Here's a piece of the clip. The whole thing runs in total like 11 minutes. Just a warning, it's tough to watch.
I'm not giving you my name for
yeah, I actually do have the right to ask you for your name in this case, okay? Okay. Well, how long is it going to be for you to make sure, okay?
Let me make sure, because I'm not about to get harassed by the police.
Well, you know what, ma'am? I have every right to ask you for your name, okay?
I'm not about to get Michelle.
Ma'am, no. Michelle what? What is your name?
Let me get the person.
Ma'am, I'm going to give you, 2 minutes. Watch yourself, please.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Ma'am, please.
Do not touch me. Do not. I'm pregnant. Do not touch me.
Okay.
Do not touch me. What the is going on? Do not touch me. Do not touch me. Do not touch me. Do not touch me, sir. Do not touch me. Do not touch me. Do not touch me. I'm pregnant. Stop it.
Don't
That's
resist.
ridiculous. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Ma'am,
Okay, so I'm pregnant. Please, I'm pregnant.
so why are you resisting, then? Why are you resisting, please? I just lost my cuffs. Do you have your cuffs? Okay, get up, ma'am.
I can't. I'm pregnant.
Okay.
Feel my stomach.
Watch yourself.
Stop. My stomach. Stop.
So why are you resisting?
Because you guys are stupid. Y'all are stupid.
Go ahead.
In the state of California, was that arrest justified?
Well, the police officer has to believe it is. He's got to reasonably believe that this arrest is justified. All right, I saw this whole video. They should have let this go. There was nothing here. Some white woman complaining about a black woman. They had a little argument. Somebody threw something at each other. Went over, spoke to both of them. Okay, let this go. This ain't going nowhere. But I think what the police officer did was he tried to ascertain the name in the event there's some kind of civil litigation might go on. So I think the officer thought that he'd be able to go over and ask her name and information, then give it to this woman, and then I would have got the other woman's information and given to her. This way they can both go to court and, figure this out.
The law in the state of California is that an officer can ask for your name.
Okay.
If he has reasonable suspicion that a crime took place. Now, that officer actually told the white woman, this is a school parking lot where this took place.
Right.
He told the white woman, I don't see any crime here at all.
Right. You see that in the
But
first
he
piece
was
of the video.
talking about, I think, damage to vehicles when he said that, because it appears as though there was a road rage type of situation, but it wasn't a highway, it was private property. Then she refuses to. Well, she actually gave her first name. She said Michelle.
Right.
But she refused.
And she brings
to
up
really,
race. We should be. This is the reason why we're even interjecting this. The second woman does bring it up.
But she refuses to really give her name. The officer then does have a right to arrest her, whether it's a legal arrest or not. Just as Harry said,
does have a
is
right.
for a judge to determine.
Mark,
The point that I've been trying to make, though, is that this becomes emblematic of the problem if we say it's her fault for having the audacity to be upset or to resist an unlawful arrest, unfair treatment, differential treatment.
You can't make the differential. She doesn't know if it's an unlawful arrest.
Just listen to what I'm saying.
Okay.
We're not making a legal analysis right now.
Right.
The question was who was responsible for escalating this. And what you're saying, if the woman had not done X, Y would not have happened.
Right.
I'm saying, had not the police done X, Y would not happen. And if we're going to choose between the person to assign blame, let's choose the person that did the unlawful arrest. Let's choose the person that engaged in differential treatment. Based on what we saw in that video, the woman didn't do anything wrong, and neither did the other woman.
She was 7 months pregnant.
8 months.
She knows she's got a child in her belly.
Right.
Okay. Why is she resisting arrest, making it hard? Because you could hear the police officer saying, "Don't resist arrest."
How about just on the point? I'm sorry. How about from
Right.
a police? Hold on. From a police perspective, I honestly don't know the answer. Let's say it was absolutely justified. She needed to be arrested as an officer, and she's saying over and over, "I'm pregnant." Why place her on her belly?
No.
I'm just
that
asking.
happened as a result of the arrest. They had to put her down to get her handcuffed. All she had to do was put her hands
on her stomach.
That's the only. How are you going to get handcuffed behind the back? You got to go on her stomach, and she's fighting, so you can't specifically put her down a certain way.
So that is police training.
Right?
And the police officer,
I'm just asking. I'm asking.
The police officer had a body cam.
No, it's not
That's how
police
he
training.
seen it all. He had the camera.
And the police officer had a body cam, so he thought everything he was doing was correct.
That's what's problematic for me. I'm not saying these officers came in and said, "Hey, let's go to a parking lot and harass somebody." I think they actually think they're right. That's the problem. It's a structural problem. It's not.
Well, we don't even know if they're wrong yet. This hasn't.
Hang on. Let me just jump in because this is what Barstow Police. They've launched an internal review. They wouldn't comment further to CNN. Here's what they told our affiliate out of LA, KCBS. Quote: "The city of Barstow has received the video link regarding Charlena Cook's arrest. It is apparent that Ms. Cook actively resisted arrest. This incident was in no way racially motivated, as implied by the ACLU. We affirm our police department's commitment to protect and serve all our residents."
A dispute over littering is the latest flashpoint in race relations between police and the public. Cell phone video of a white Fort Worth police officer arresting a black mother and her 2 daughters has been viewed more than 1 million times in just a matter of hours.
Oh, you're not okay? They don't shoot that
The officer who appeared to point his taser at two of the women is now under investigation by Internal Affairs. Now, the woman in the white shirt, Jacqueline Craig, says she's the one who called police to complain that a neighbor choked her 7-year-old son for littering. Things went downhill quickly when the officer arrived. Craig and her daughters just returned home from jail and talked to reporters about what happened.
I really just want to get back to my family as normal right now. I don't know.
Craig's comments were brief following what has been a whirlwind of a day. Fox 4's Sean Rabb begins our coverage in the neighborhood where it happened. Sean.
And Natalie, it has been a whirlwind of a day with that video now being viewed online more than 1 million times. We are standing in front of the home where the man accused of choking Jacqueline Craig's 7-year-old son lives. Just a few moments ago, police were called out here, 911. We learned they were called because of us and the many media present along the sidewalk here and outside this home. The incident really happened along the side of the house yesterday afternoon. Now, everyone who's seen the video, from the public here in Fort Worth to police experts and those who consult police departments, are wondering how the mother who called 911 because of her son and what he said happened to him, how the mother and her 2 daughters could go to jail. Protest in downtown Fort Worth sparked by this. The arrest of Jacqueline Craig and her 2 daughters caught by iPhone gone viral on Facebook. Craig called 911 complaining a neighbor who the officer is talking to choked her 7-year-old son because he threw trash in his yard and refused to pick it up. We pick up her conversation with the officer who answered her call for help.
My son is 7 years old. You don't have the right to grab him, choke him behind no paper that he threw. What you should have done, because we have been living here for years, so you know that my house is a door in between yours. You could have came to me. Don't put your hands on my son.
Why don't you get your son off the litter?
He can't prove to me that my son littered. But it doesn't matter if he did or didn't. It doesn't give him the right to put his hands on it.
Craig's voice raises as the officer begins his questions about her son, including why she doesn't teach him not to litter.
Because you just pissed me off telling me what I teach my kids and what I don't.
Craig's 15-year-old daughter tries to push her mother back. She's pushed away. Other kids run up and are pushed. Craig, taken to the ground, taser on her back, then pointed at the daughter. People are cursing the officer. Craig, the 15-year-old, and the 19-year-old behind the cell phone camera are all arrested. Craig's charged with resisting arrest or transport and failure to identify as a fugitive. She had outstanding traffic warrants. Her 19-year-old daughter, Breer Hyman, charged with resisting and interfering with public duties.
When I look at that video, you really don't know why she was arrested.
Dr. Robert Taylor teaches criminology and policing at University of Texas at Dallas. He's used as a police expert and consults Ferguson, Milwaukee, and Charlotte, who've experienced civil unrest following police-public confrontations.
And I don't quite understand that kind of behavior on the part of the officer. When officers are taught and trained over and over again that when we go to neighborhood disturbances, there's going to be people yelling at you. You've just got to be professional through the whole thing.
The unidentified officer is not on administrative leave, but has been placed on restricted duty until the investigation is done. Internal Affairs detectives were in the home of the man who allegedly choked Craig's son for about an hour and in the neighborhood looking for witnesses. No one answered our knock at the door. Craig's attorney, Lee Merritt, tweeted this picture of her and a daughter in the Mansfield jail while waiting release.
The officer was not at all interested in the assault of the 7-year-old child, but was more concerned with the accusations of the person, the assailant, that he had littered in his yard.
As Craig and her daughter were leaving jail, Fort Worth police emailed a statement acknowledging the video raises questions. We ask that our investigators are given time and opportunity to thoroughly examine this incident and to submit their findings. This process may take time, but the integrity of the investigation rests upon the ability of the investigators to document facts and to accurately evaluate the size and scope of what transpired. We ask our community for patience and calm during this investigative process. Craig and her daughter returned home from jail.
As well as police officers, human beings, period, you have some good and some bad.
Now, the 15-year-old who was taken to juvenile has also been released. Everyone's been released, but now, at least for now, all still face charges. Natalie?
All right, so Sean, you included part of the Fort Worth Police Department statement in your report. Has there been any word from Police Chief Joel Fitzgerald?
No, Natalie, it's been silent from Chief Fitzgerald. This would be his first test in the community as chief of the Fort Worth Police Department. And I think a lot of people today wanted to hear from him. They wanted to see him and hear him say something about, let us investigate, let us determine what happened, let us interview the officer who has 2 days now before he gives his statement. I've also learned he's a longtime veteran who had apparently nothing in his record of excessive force or conflict with citizens in the past. But I think folks wanted to hear from Joel Fitzgerald and see leadership from him leading his department through this right now crisis in this community.
Sure. All right. We'll have to wait and see if that happens. Sean Rabb, thank you for the thorough reporting.
Caught on camera, a viral video shows a Baltimore County police officer throwing a grandmother to the ground. Tonight, we are hearing from that grandmother. Police have yet to comment on specifics in the case.
Again, tonight, she's breaking her silence along with several members of her family. WJZ investigator Mike Helger live outside her lawyer's office in downtown Baltimore with the new interviews. Mike.
Denise and Rick, the family has identified 2 officers they say are involved in this video, a Corporal Brennan, who they say initially entered the home, and an Officer Schmidt, who they say threw Ms. Rena Mellerson to the ground. We have yet to hear back from the police union, and at this point, police are not releasing the body camera video on those officers.
I hope this will never happen to anybody else again, because it's not a good feeling.
For the first time, 76-year-old grandmother Rena Mellerson, who was thrown to the ground by a Baltimore County police officer last week, is speaking about the incident captured in this viral video.
Do you trust police in Baltimore County where you live? Well, all of them are not the same. Some are good and some are bad. You just don't know which one you're going to be dealing with.
The Mellerson family says this followed an encounter between Rena's granddaughter, Sierra Floyd, and an officer who then used motor vehicle records to track Floyd down at her grandmother's home.
For me to see the lady that raised me thrown to the ground, I would never do anything like that to my grandmother. And I would not want anything like that to happen to anybody else's grandmother. I'm not a criminal. My mother's not a criminal. My daughter's not a criminal. One thing they can't say, well, we checked their background and they had this, that, and the other. You won't do it to this family.
Lady can barely walk and you slam her like that.
The family alleges the officer barged into the house in Gwynn Oak and deployed pepper spray in the home, traumatizing the grandchildren.
I didn't know what they did.
Before another officer responded and threw Ms. Mellerson to the ground.
We want justice because we need to let the community know that what happened to Ms. Mellerson, to Sierra Floyd, to these children is unacceptable. It will not be tolerated.
Rena Mellerson, who was taken into custody and later released, faces 3 misdemeanor charges. Police have not spoken about the video, but in a statement, Baltimore County's police chief called it unsettling to watch and said there would be an expedited investigation. The family is just glad someone was recording.
Because if that video did never surface, they would have said it never happened.
The family is calling for better training of police officers. They say they will cooperate with an internal affairs investigation. At this point, they're not saying whether or not they will file a lawsuit against county police. Live in downtown Baltimore, Mike Helgren, WJZ.
The Kentucky family is demanding answers today in the death of a frontline healthcare worker who was killed during a police raid 2 months ago today. Breonna Taylor's family is suing 3 Louisville police officers after the 26-year-old woman was shot and killed in her apartment. Now, officials say this incident back in March was tied to a drug investigation where police were searching for someone else. As our national correspondent Jerika Duncan reports, Taylor's mother claims gross negligence took her daughter's life.
Breonna loved life, and she loved to help people, and she loved a family. She didn't deserve what they did to her.
Tamika Palmer is Breonna Taylor's mother. The 26-year-old was an EMT working in emergency rooms at 2 hospitals and helping respond to the coronavirus outbreak.
I was more concerned with her washing her hands than dying at home.
But just after midnight on March 13th, police shot Taylor at least 8 times, killing her in the apartment she shared with her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker.
Officers knocked on the door several times,
and announced their presence as police who were there with a search warrant. The officers forced entry into the exterior door and were immediately met by gunfire.
Louisville Metro Police say the officers were part of a narcotics investigation and opened fire after Walker shot first. They're now on administrative reassignment pending the results of an internal investigation. The lawsuit against the officers claims the suspect they were searching for was already in custody. Taylor's family alleges the officers wearing plain clothes did not identify themselves and that Walker, a registered gun owner, was shooting at men he believed were breaking in. Walker is now charged with first-degree assault and attempted murder of a police officer.
They thought they were being burglarized. Does the Second Amendment not apply to African Americans?
Attorney Ben Crump joined Breonna Taylor's case this week. He is also representing the family of Ahmaud Arbery, who was shot dead in February while on a run in his Georgia neighborhood.
This was a completely unnecessary and justifiable killing of an innocent woman.
For CBS This Morning, Jerika Duncan.
And your heart goes out to that family. They're looking for answers as to how their daughter was killed, and we hope they get them.
Tonight, community leaders, loved ones, and the lawyer for Tatiana Jefferson's family want justice.
She went to investigate at the window. An officer was on the other side who shouted commands, and before she had a moment to respond, he shot her to death. That's murder.
Speaking out after police released body cam footage showing two officers responding to a welfare check when one officer calls for someone to put up their hands.
Put your hands up! Show me your hands!
The Fort Worth Police Department saying the officer perceived a threat. The officer drew his duty weapon and fired one shot, striking the person inside the residence. Community leaders don't buy it.
She was in her own place and shot and killed her. That is not only unacceptable, that's murder.
There's no reason for her to be dead because there was nothing violent going on. There was no distress at this particular property.
Even the mayor of Fort Worth striking an emotional tone. This is tragic and something that should never be necessary. A young woman has lost her life, leaving her family in unbelievable grief. Questions tonight about whether the firearm found at Tatiana's home was ever pointed at responding officers. Another controversial officer-involved shooting. Just weeks after Dallas police officer Amber Geiger was convicted and sentenced for killing a man in his home. The parallels not lost on those in Fort Worth.
I called on the Fort Worth Police Department to stop this shooting first, asking questions later, especially when it comes to our community.
And Sam, what is the Fort Worth Police Department saying about all this?
Yeah, well, Kate, first, the mayor has called for an immediate and transparent investigation. We just found out from the Fort Worth Police Department they're going to be interviewing this officer tomorrow. But, Kate, ultimately, the decision over whether or not charges are coming will come from the Tarrant County District Attorney.